Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Holistic Witch's Cottage. My name is Melissa, and I am the Holistic Witch, and I am so happy to have you here with me today. At the time of this recording, it is May 26th, so it is Memorial Day in the United States. So if you're in the States, happy holiday weekend. I hope all is well for you. The weather here in my part of the world, in the mountains of central Pennsylvania, has been disappointing this week. It's been very cold, rainy. There have been weird storms and tornadoes again, and it's just generally been yucky. I don't have any other way to describe it other than yucky. There have been floods, there has been damage, but thankfully up here on the mountain, up here at the cottage, things have been okay. The gardens are growing well. The container gardens. We hadn't planted much in the ground yet, but we do have some things in the ground now. But everything's okay here. But today is another chilly 58 degrees. I had really hoped to get outside and maybe spend a little time in the Spa hot tub where the temperature is 95 degrees, but I'm not sure if I want to do that yet. We'll see. That may happen, but I'm not certain. Okay, so in the wonderful world of the cottage, the new Facebook page, the New Wish Facebook page, is doing so wonderfully well. I want to thank all of you who have joined or liked or followed or whatever Facebook lingo we want to use for that. I keep getting all the little Facebook notifications with congratulations for growth, and that's awesome. I kind of dislike the word follower because, it feels a little cult-like to me. I'm not looking for followers. I'm really about building community and having a safe space for like-minded people to sort of just hang out and say what they want to say and do what they want to do. So I want to mention a few names. You may remember, this is not my first attempt at the cottage. I've actually been at this for about 5 years on a different platform first under a different name. And then there was a Facebook group for a while, but politics made it kind of go yucky. And I'm so happy that none of that is happening this time, because even if we have different beliefs, and I'm sure many of us do, everyone seems to be coming together just under the common ground of being attracted to this type of cottage, natural, spiritual lifestyle. So that's awesome. I want to thank a few names from the OG cottage that seem to be making regular participations on the new one. So thanks to Molly, Shady, and Kristen. And I'm going to toss Angel into that too, because she's been around a lot too. And then there's some new names I'm seeing a lot, and that's Eric Nola, Maria, Eileen, and Pam. I'm sure there are others, but those are names that the dashboard suggested. And those are names that I'm seeing a lot for positive interaction. So thank you so much for joining. So back to the cottage, my cottage. So the container gardens are doing well. I've been picking greens and spinach for over a week, and that's so awesome. I had green onions yesterday, and that was great too. The birds are coming in full force and starting to see some new ones, like the golden finches have shown up, and there are a lot of cardinals around. The eagle that was causing some havoc has seemed to move on, so I'm not sure if it's nesting somewhere and is staying nearby with babies, or it's just moved on from hunting here. But either way, I'm thankful that the eagle has moved on, because it was making quite a lot of damage here. They are beautiful, beautiful birds, but it was making a lot of damage in this part of my neighborhood. And so the eagle has moved on. The golden finches have arrived. I saw scarlet tanagers. And then we have the regulars. The hummingbirds are back in full force. We always seem to have. We had one that came back for many years. We called it Twitch because honestly, I think there was something a little wrong with that one. We saw Twitch for many years, and I'm not sure what the lifespan is on a hummingbird. I have not seen Twitch this year, but we have a new family. Probably Twitch's offspring is back, and that's awesome. And we always get like the same robins because I sort of train them to come on the porch, and they'll land on the rocking chair with me, and these robins come back and they land right on the chair with me, so they must be old visitors too. So that's cool. So that's what's happening here. Whatever's happening in your world, I hope that everything is well and the weather is well and you are safe. So some of the things I want to talk about in today's recording are Memorial Day, International Tea Day, and World Meditation Day, which sort of goes together, World Tarot Day, and International Geek Pride Day, which was a new one to me. I didn't know about that one. So let's start with Memorial Day. That's today. So my family lives on the fringe, on the edge of a small town in the mountains. The closest large city is about an hour away, and just to try to give you a visual representation, there's clusters of tiny towns in this area that are all about 3 to 5 miles away from each other. Now, my husband and I went to the same school district, the same high school. He's from a town up the highway about 4 to 5 miles, and we live in my hometown. Not the same house, but in my hometown. And that's pretty much what this area is. You drive about 3-4 miles and encounter another small town. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because my husband and I always do the cemetery tour, we call it. I don't have any more family left in the area, and my husband's family is scattered about, so we've sort of taken on the responsibility of visiting the graves and taking planters and flowers. So my parents have both passed on, and that is the closest cemetery to us, not even quite a mile away from the cottage. And then the other cemeteries that we visit are like 4 miles away, and then my husband's grandparents, I'd even say that's closer to 10 miles away. So on a cold, rainy Saturday morning, we went on the cemetery tour. Our first trip was the furthest one away, and I saw some birds in the cemetery. It was raining off and on while we did that visit, but there were these 2 very loud birds. So I did some research. I wasn't sure what they were. They weren't ordinary birds to me, not ones that we normally have up here at the cottage. And I think I've identified them as mockingbirds, northern mockingbirds specifically. And the symbolism for northern mockingbirds, I wrote this down somewhere, innocence, purity, and vulnerability. And I think that's probably appropriate for a tiny, forgotten old cemetery on the fringe of a tiny, almost forgotten town in the mountains. So we started there. This is an old cemetery. It's small, and a lot of it is not in great repair. So we took a planter to my husband's maternal grandparents' graves. And so I'm going to start with just a little bit of cemetery etiquette. And this is from an article I found online for Witch 101 Graveyard Etiquette by Maddie Ernst. And I had actually posted this article earlier in the week on the page. So number one for cemetery etiquette is to bring offerings. This year I made planters that were almost filled with pink alyssum, pink polka dot plant, and some dianthus. I don't know why pink resonated with me this year because I don't usually do that, but that seemed fitting. My husband's maternal grandmother, I really liked her. My husband described Grandma as a farm girl, which is sort of like how I grew up on the fringe of that too. So I think we had some things in common being country girls. And so I felt like it was really appropriate to put pink up there. Then we move on to the next cemetery. So we drive through my husband's hometown and then take a right turn through the woods for 3 to 4 miles to another. This cemetery's larger. It's up on top of a hill, and it's also very, very old, and that's where my husband's father is. Now, he hasn't been gone very long. It's been just a couple years for Pappy. So here's my story with this. So cemetery etiquette number one, bring appropriate offerings. And I get in so much trouble for this. But on my father has been gone for over 30 years. And this used to just upset my mom so much. But I always put a planter of tomatoes on my father's grave because I don't have a lot of significantly positive memories of my dad. But my dad was really into gardening, and one year he planted 128 tomato plants. And I don't know, my mom did some canning, but I remember that they used to toss a lot of produce back in the weeds because I think my dad grew tomatoes more for just bragging rights to take to the local bar. Now, my father-in-law was also an avid gardener. I think they used everything they planted. And he was also a tomato fanatic. So, one time when my husband and I were visiting the in-laws, I had mentioned about my mom being mad because I put a tomato planter on my dad's grave. And Pappy was still alive at this time, and he said, when I'm gone, you do that for me too. So we put tomato planters on our father's graves. We have both received some complaints about that from other people in our family, that they think that it's inappropriate, but we both think it's more than appropriate, and Pappy actually requested that. So cemetery etiquette, bring appropriate offerings. So for both of our tomato growing fanatic daddies, we take tomatoes. So after visiting Pappy's grave and taking tomato number one, then we traveled back towards home and then swung by the cemetery closest to us where my parents are in the Legion Cemetery. And we popped in there and dropped off another tomato for my dad and another planter of pinks for my mother. My mother loved pink, so I think that's appropriate too. Now, my mom's thing was always putting like discounted end of the rack, like the sales rack in Lowe's, like when the plants are almost dead. The almost dead plant rack. My mom always bought geraniums that were almost dead and put them on the graves. I'm not sure if she did that to save money or it was just like one of her OCD things. But I try to make it a priority to never do that. So I try to make sure all the planters look really nice and healthy. So we dropped those off and then walked down to the lower part of the cemetery where my grandparents, my paternal grandparents, are. Now, they both died rather young, like in their 40s, and my grandfather served in World War I, so that sort of puts a timestamp out for you. Now, I had run out of planters, but we have a lot of plants growing here, so I made a planter of some things that I just took out of the ground here, some chamomile and some other fragrant and blossomed herbs to put down there. So to put this in perspective, those graves are very old. This is a part of the cemetery where there's almost no visitation at this point anymore. And my dad had also, they had lost a son. We just call him I call him little baby Uncle Normie because I think he died at age 3 during the Depression. So as long as I'm able, I'm going to continue to take pretty things down there to little Normie's gravesite too, because that's just sort of how I am. So etiquette number 2 says don't take anything without permission. Now, sometimes that's hard for us because when you go into these old cemeteries, a lot of times things are just left behind and they get trashed, especially like the artificial flowers. And sometimes people pick up like dollar store trinkets, like little $1 ceramic things, and they leave them and then they're destroyed. But we try to tidy things up, but we never take anything. Etiquette number 3 says do clean up the headstones, and the ones down on my grandparents' graves, the headstones are actually broken now. So my husband and I were able to pick them back up and lift them and put them back into place. There's been so much flooding here and climate change over the year. When I was a kid, so that's a long time ago, and I'd go to that part of the cemetery, you could see some water down near there, but due to just changes over time, it's always flooded down there. So there's starting to be a lot of damage. So we did some cleaning up. Etiquette number 4 says don't litter. 5 says do try to stick to graveyards that are over 100 years old, and that is not a problem here. Don't use mirrors, as it can confuse spirit energy. So sometimes I wonder, like driving the cars through the cemeteries, if that affects spirit energy. I can be very sensitive to spirit energy, and sometimes I pick up on things. I should say that when my husband and I used to play Pokemon Go, which we're not doing anymore, but we used to play in that nearby cemetery all the time. And I sometimes wondered if that interfered with spirit energy too. That seems weird, but energy is energy, and electronic game energy is energy too. So 6 was don't use mirrors, and number 7 is always be respectful and play nicely with spirits. So when we do our cemetery tour, we always try to be respectful to all the graves. There's the whole thing about do not walk. Number 8 is do not step on graves. They are packed so closely together where we go, that's almost impossible to not do in the old part of the cemetery, but we try to be as respectful with that as we can. 9 is play nicely with spirits, and number 10 is don't sit on headstones. So I'm curious if any of you have any cool cemetery stories to share. Please share them on the Facebook page if you have any. And so in a few days, I'll probably go and pick the planters up just because of weather conditions, because they can get damaged and I don't like to leave litter behind. But if you have interesting, cool, or paranormal cemetery stories to share, I would appreciate it. And you can share them on the Facebook page, or if you're nervous about sharing them and would like to contact me directly, you can message me or email me at theholisticwitch@gmail.com. So let's move on to International Tea Day, which was May 21st, and that is observed by the United Nations. So let's talk about tea from a magical point of view. Tea can be used for setting intentions, mindfulness, symbolism, glamour, or divination. And I'm sure there are other ways we can use it too. White tea symbolizes cleansing, protection, and new beginnings. Green tea symbolizes healing, mindfulness, and energy. Black tea symbolizes strength, happiness, and repels negativity. And I got most of these just from a Google search. And there was a list of other types of teas. And herbals can symbolize love, healing, protection, calming, etc., because that list was very long. Tea can also be used as a glamour, so that's what I want to talk about today. So during the week, I don't really have any terribly interesting cooking or kitchen witchery tales to tell this week. I did make a nice homemade chicken soup and a rye bread, but nothing tremendously interesting happened in the kitchen. But I did decide to freshen up the color in my hair a little bit. So as part of like my magical cottage lifestyle, I was raised to go to the beautician, which is what they called it back when I was a kid, all the time. My mom used to take me all the time, like sometimes once a week. And even when I was a little girl in elementary school, she was getting me perms and color, and my hair almost completely fell out once. And I've had all kind of horror stories over the years of regularly going to places like that. So I'd say, and this is pre-pandemic, but I'd say it's probably been 8 years since I've gone into a place like that. I have very long hair now, and I occasionally trim my own ends, and I do a thinning shear, so I occasionally do that. But I haven't gone into a professional hair place, and it's got to be 7 to 8 years. I was using commercial box colors, and the one that I really liked, I'm not going to give them a promo, that the one I really liked was a level 2 or semi-permanent. And they added a new ingredient, which I'm actually allergic to, so I can't use their product anymore. And I haven't found anything else that I feel like is safe, because I have like a long list of allergies. So I do occasionally color my hair with herbals or other natural ingredients that you can grow in the garden. Now, this can be a controversial subject, and I was absolutely blistered one time when I wrote about this on another platform. I understand that there are people in the hair care industry that are against this, but I'm not going back in your shops anyway. So it's not that I'm necessarily promoting this. I'm just sort of talking about my cottage life. But I do use tea and herbal rinses to color my hair. Now, tea rinses can be very healthy for your hair. And I even read some, I can never say that right, cosmetology-based articles and research about using tea to strengthen your hair. But I'm specifically talking about tea as a glamour today. Tea as coloring your hair and as a magical glamour. So if you were to want to try to do that, you can brew your tea and wait till it cools and put it in a spray bottle. Spray it on your hair and then wrap your hair loosely in a towel and leave it for about an hour. And you may not get significant changes the first time, so sometimes it takes more than one time to do it. So let's talk a little bit about tea glamour correspondences. So just based on color alone, if you want a blonder color, you can use chamomile. Now, a correspondence for chamomile is calming or anti-anxiety, and another correspondence for chamomile can also astral travel, lucid dreaming. So if that's something you would like to enhance in your life through a hair glamour, you could use a chamomile hair rinse. Now, I don't use the spray bottle. I'm ridiculous. I have a big tub. I soak my hair in the tea. I try to keep it in there for like 5 minutes, and then I wrap it up in the towel. Calendula petals can be used for gold tones and also for astral travel and healing. Rhubarb, I suppose it's the leaves, can be used for lightning. I've never used that one, so I'm not sure. And I'm not really sure what the correspondences are for rhubarb. Black tea, very dark, can be used for darkening hair and covering gray. I've also discovered that, because I have dark brown hair, if I use black tea and a pinch of turmeric stirred up very well, I can darken my hair, but my gray will take on gold highlights. And turmeric is anti-inflammatory, and it promotes healing. And I think I said earlier, black is for strength, happiness, and repel negativity. If you want to keep your hair basically the same color, but just blend in the grays, you may want to try a sage, rosemary, and nettle mix to cover gray and to repel negativity, clarity of thought, and healing. Now this time I wanted to go with red highlights, so I used a rooibos tea for red, and the correspondence is nurturing, love, and abundance. And that sounded good to me, so that's what I went for with my tea glamour. Now, let me put out a disclaimer on this. Unless you're allergic, it will not hurt you. But if you normally go to a hair salon and you like commercial products, you may not like what you get from a tea rinse. But if you're somebody like me who has decided to forego chemicals as much as you can, this is something you can try, and you can let me know. But I don't want to get blistered by another beautician that I was telling people not to go to salons. If you like salon products, that's awesome, and That's a personal decision. I have chosen to not do that anymore, and I am much happier for my decision, but that's just me, and that's personal choice. So whatever you did for International Tea Day, which was also International Meditation Day, over on my Facebook group called Yoga in Time, I did a little yoga sip and flow, and I got some positive comments on that. And a very I hate to say an old friend, although we are both old. We've known each other for over 50 years. She popped in and did the meditation and sip and flow and really liked it. So thanks for your positive comments, Maddie, on that. So let's move on to World Tarot Day. Well, just a little bit more about International Meditation Day. All I'm really going to say about meditation is I feel that a strong mind and a disciplined mind will create strong magic and disciplined magic. So if you feel like your magical practice is not where you want it to be, meditation, including yoga or Tai Chi or anything that you choose, may help to strengthen your connection with that. The stronger and more focused your energy, I believe the more stronger and focused your magic will be. Let's move on to World Tarot Day, which was yesterday, or May 25th. And I did offer just a little free, fun reading on the page. So World Tarot Day is to celebrate cartomancy, or card divination, and spiritual practices. Now, when I originally did the first cottage, which I'm calling the 1.0 group, people used to ask me questions about tarot, and I was able to answer them, but I said, tarot doesn't really resonate with me. I tended to know more about how to read with old-fashioned playing cards, because I learned how to do that from my aunties when I was a child. Over the last 5 years, a few tarot decks have shown up. Well, I guess we have one oracle deck and 2 tarot decks have shown up in our home, and I've started to pay a little more attention to those. If your spiritual or religious practice is against divination, that is personal preference. If you're uncomfortable with divination, that's fine. I was taught by very devout Orthodox and Catholic women to divine with potato peels, apple peels, clouds, petals, stars, and occasionally an old deck of playing cards when I was a young kiddo. How do I put this nicely? I find it more of an entertainment source than, oh my gosh, the card said this, so I have to do this. I kind of look at it as an entertainment source, but I look at horoscopes that way too. If you see it differently, that's fine. We're all different. But I have been looking more at tarot. I absolutely love tarot as an art form. My angel oracle cards are gorgeous. My husband picked up some steampunk cards, which I used on the Facebook page yesterday, at a witchy event. And then we were at like a Comic-Con in October, and then we ended up at a bookstore afterwards, a discount bookstore, and I'm a big Star Trek geek. We'll get to that next. And my husband picked up Star Trek Tarot. So I have been looking at those a bit and playing with those a bit. And usually the readings are like spot on. So if you want to call it spicy psychology or just, a chance to reflect on what your own feelings are, that's cool. If you see them as a completely magical source, that's awesome too. And if your religion or upbringing is anti-cards, then simply don't use them. But I do occasionally get messages from people that feel like they're stuck. They really want to try this, but they don't know how to. There are a lot of articles online. Even WikiHow has articles on how to read tarot. All I can really suggest, if you really want to try this, just jump in and try it. If your religious beliefs are holding you back and you can't cross that threshold, that's okay. But sometimes I feel really bad because I've known some of the people that read my stuff for close to 8 years now, and it's always the same thing. Like 8 years ago, I really want to try this, but well, it's 8 years later and these same people are still telling me this. I really want to try this, but I think there's got to be a point in time when you decide, like, I really want to try this, but I'm not going to, and just leave it be at that. Or I really want to try this and I'm going to try it, and even if it doesn't go well, then that's okay. I never have to do it again. But I absolutely hate to see people so stuck that they're afraid to move forward with things. You know, it's okay to make a decision. And if it's a small decision, we're not talking about like selling all your property and donating it, you know, and living on the street corner. We're not talking about those kind of decisions. If you're thinking about reading an article on the internet and then you just say, hey, this isn't for me, that's cool. But I hate to see people that are so stuck that they just can't move forward in their lives. So I'm just going to send a little positive energy out to those people. Go ahead and make a decision. And if your decision is to not move forward, that's okay. Embrace that decision and say, I've decided I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to move on with my life. But I hate to see people just so stuck and terrified by not being able to make a decision that it holds them back in other parts of their lives. So if that applies to tarot, just give yourself permission to move forward. To move forward to do, or move forward to not do, but then to not be troubled by it anymore. So let's move on from World Tarot Day, because we're getting a little lengthier today, to Geek Pride Day, which was also yesterday, and that was a new one to me. So all I'm going to say about that is whatever your fandoms are that you love, if you want to post them on the Facebook page, I put up a post for that. If you want to post your favorite fandoms, whether you're a Star Trek nerd like me, I love all sci-fi, or Harry Potter, or video games, or coding, or anything that falls within the wonderful world of geekdom, embrace your inner geek and share it with the rest of us. You might be surprised how many of us like what you like. So I think I will sum up this week's recording with that. Wherever you are and whatever you do, just be happy with it. It's cool to be whoever you are. Thank you for listening. I am Melissa, and thank you for following the Holistic Witch's Cottage. Blessings on your journey, and have an amazing week. Bye-bye.